gosh, it is really special to be home. It's really special to be on this stage. It's really special to be in front of an amazing community that for so long I have fought to find a way to come home to. One day, you'll get me back one day, Mom and Dad. It is an honor to be here to represent the man that I love. It is an honor to be here in general. Happy Pride means a lot more than dancing and singing and reveling in our identity and our freedoms. Pride for so many of us here tonight, so many of us in this community, for so many of us in this country is a celebration of being alive. That we cannot forget that the closet kills, that the closet claims lives, and that we should celebrate the simple fact that we are here and we made it and we are proud of who we are. It is so special to be in Traverse City during Up North Pride. There was no Up North Pride when I lived here. I was a little emotional walking downtown with my mother today, seeing rainbow flags. Seeing this community say, we love this community. We love everyone in this community. And we were talking about that. It's not just about whether you fall somewhere on that LGBTQ+ acronym. Is that this community is taking a stand saying that we love everyone in this community. Everyone is welcome in this community. And we love you for exactly who you are. And that is a remarkable thing. So thank you, Traverse City, for doing that for this city and your community. I want to be really short on monologue tonight because I want to jump right into your questions. But I want to say we are at a tremendous moment in our American story. That the energy out there in this country surrounding my husband's campaign is phenomenal. People are craving something new. People are craving a politics that makes them hopeful again. People are craving a politics that tells people they belong again. And it is an honor to hit the road and travel this country and meet people in all corners of this nation to bring them to the table and to hear their stories and to let them know that they are on our radar and that they are loved and that they are cared about. So with that, I can't wait to answer your questions. Thank you so much for welcoming me home. How cool is it to see your name on a marquee? Right? So this is phenomenal. And before we begin, and I'm afraid we're going to run out of time so quickly, I just want to give a special shout out to two very special people who are here with us tonight. My parents are right here in the front row, Sherry and Terry Glesman. I love you very much. Surrounded by such a loving, wonderful family. It's so good to see all of you and talk down to you for once. We should all be so lucky to be surrounded and lifted up by a family that loves you and accepts you for who they are. No matter what the journey was for your family, no matter what your story is, it is a remarkable gift to be loved by people who brought you into this world. And I'm so glad you're here tonight, and I love you very much. So with that, I'm going to bring out someone very special who you already got to meet, Christy Bach, my high school drama teacher. And I just want to say before we begin that theater was the thing that saved me. And it was very easy to pick someone to be here with us tonight. When I had to think of someone who could be on the stage with me, Christy Bach, I owe so much to her for being the teacher who made a space for me in high school when I was clawing and itching to get out, to run away, and felt like there was no space for me in high school. As a young gay kid growing up, surrounded by a pretty homophobic community at that time, Christy was a very gifted teacher in the fact that she created spaces for students where it was okay and safe to be themselves. And I owe so much to you, and I'm so glad that here we are. We get to share this stage together. And I think we just owe her a round of applause for everything that she has done. All right. So what what kind of conversation are we having? This is like a Fox News conversation? What's the temperature of the questions?
Well, we've got people with microphones. We're going to just start out with a couple.
Okay, great.
I'll tell you what, I'll project. I'm a theater teacher, so I can do that. We have some of your questions here for Chasten. I'll let him keep the microphone. And so we pulled a couple questions out. We'll jump right in.
Okay.
What project or initiative would you select to promote or work on as the first gentleman? Not be best.
What's that? What is that?
Be best?
Yeah, well, I've never heard of it. Here's the thing: when you are offered the opportunity to represent the people of this country, you have to remember that the White House is the people's house. It is not your house. It belongs to the country. It belongs to the people. And your job is to represent an entire country. So as first gentleman, I would immediately begin flying that plane all over the country to make sure that people knew that they were loved and that they were cared about. And then I'm gonna swing those doors wide open and invite as many people into the White House as possible to celebrate that institution with them. Like I said, the arts was the thing that saved me. Theater is the place where I felt I belonged and it was okay to be myself. So it's very comfortable for me to feel like theater could be the thing, theater education and arts education could be the thing that I could easily go out there and talk about and feel comfortable talking about. But as we travel the country, I make sure that whenever Peter and I are on the trail together and I have the opportunity to schedule, I also meet homeless service providers and folks who run LGBTQ centers in their cities, because I also want to know what's happening in their community, because those are also two very important issues close to my heart, as well as veterans issues. I've been meeting with a lot more veterans on the trail, and I just don't think our country does enough for our veterans. So I can see myself doing a lot of things in the White House, but I also want to be careful not to measure the drapes, to be seen as sitting home and dreaming about what life is going to be like in the White House, because we have the opportunity to do good work right now, to make people feel good about politics right now. So I just want to make sure that even in this moment, I'm doing enough to make people feel like the Buttigieg White House and the Buttigieg campaign is one that cares about them and wants to bring them into that house as well.
I will use the mic. I haven't been teaching for 4 years, so. And this is attached to this, and it was kind of, I think it was a tongue-in-cheek question, but it's actually maybe what's on some people's minds. What would you wear to the inauguration?
A suit.
Okay. This says, when Pete is elected, you being an educator, and you touched on this just a little bit, and the first gentleman, how are you going to be an advocate for education in our country?
I think a lot of the dialogue around education in the country and the progressive dialogue is about getting teachers a raise. And I firmly believe that teachers deserve a raise. Peter and I believe that we should treat teachers like our soldiers and pay them like our doctors, right? But the problem with the conversation around education is that it quickly gets skewed to the thing that will solve all of our problems in education is giving teachers a raise, which is not true. Do teachers deserve a raise? Absolutely. But they also deserve counselors. They also deserve paraprofessionals and mental health advocates in schools. They deserve services so that caseworkers in school aren't bogged down by a 400 student caseload, right? I've heard far too many terrifying stories from teachers in the short 6 months that we've already been on the campaign trail. We've been traveling this country and inviting teachers to come to roundtables and tell us what's happening in their schools. So I hope that in being involved in the conversation, I can shed some more light on the realities behind those walls in our schools, that it's not just about getting teachers a raise, it's actually making schools the institutions that are turning out human beings, not robots, right? Which is why we deserve humanities education, arts education, time for children to play, talk to one another, be creative with one another. So I hope that in the conversations I'm having on the trail and given this platform, that I can shed some more light on the realities behind American education.
What have you learned or experienced about or in America while on the campaign trail that has surprised you?
A couple things. Well, for me, growing up, I was never interested in politics. And politics was always the thing that happened to me, or happened to my family. It was this faraway idea of people in Washington making decisions that trickled down into my family and usually made my family worse off. Watching Mom battle skin cancer and continue to battle skin cancer, Obamacare is the thing that is really keeping Mom alive. And before Obamacare, it wasn't uncommon to see Mom and Dad, even though they tried very hard to hide it from us, worrying about how they were going to afford their medical bills, worry about how they were going to put 3 kids through school and afford us every opportunity we ever wanted, while trying to solve the problem of paying for Mom's chemotherapy. So when you grow up in a system that, one, as a gay kid, tells you you're immoral and disgusting and you don't belong and you shouldn't have access to healthcare services or marriage or family planning resources, and that we still cannot donate our organs or our blood. When you grow up in an environment that tells you you don't belong, and then you grow up in an environment that shows you how hard it is to be a family in the middle class in this country, politics, you're immediately turned off by politics. And as we travel the country and get to know people, politics isn't an interest for people. Just like me and just like our family, politics is the thing that's happening to people. Politics has the opportunity to make your life either better or worse. That's what politics is about. And so as we get to know people and we try to step into their shoes and see what life is like for them, we learn that politics is a thing that is making more people worse off than better off. Which brings me to my second point, which is there's a lot of hurt in this country. There, of course, as we've seen, and I think is a direct correlation to this president, a lot of racism, xenophobia, homophobia, sexism, and I think a lot of that stems from the hurt that people feel in this country, because it is harder to build people up and to make people feel good and hopeful. It is easier to tear people down and to separate them and divide them and turn them against one another. And that is the soul craft of politics, building people up, making people feel hopeful, inspiring them to care, not just about themselves, but about the people around them. And it is going to take a very dedicated servant leader who puts service before himself or herself and country to fix and at least address a lot of the hurt and harm in this country. And I think I know a guy who would be pretty good for the job.
Somebody here, and I'm sure it's probably not the only person, wants to know, how does one volunteer to work on Pete's campaign for president?
Great. So PeteForAmerica.com. Let's just make sure we have your email address right away so we can contact you when we're rolling through town again. There are 2 very easy ways to help this campaign. I think one's easier than the other. We are building the plane on the runway, as we like to say. This campaign took off very quickly, and we need the resources to make sure that we can sustain that flight. So obviously, money's great. We would appreciate your donation. But the harder task that I'm going to ask you to do is to go out into this community and get comfortable talking about politics again. So many times, at least I was told, we typically don't talk about religion or politics at the dinner table, right? Best to avoid those topics and those conversations. We can't afford that anymore. We have to talk to people about this campaign and why winning back the White House in 2020 is for a lot of people, a life and death decision. You have to get comfortable rolling up your sleeves and talking to your friends and your family about why this campaign matters, why winning in 2020 matters, and why you're supporting Pete Buttigieg for president. I know there's 20 or 50 of us in this conversation right now. And I want you to imagine, if you pick your favorite basketball team, imagine telling someone, you know, I think what's best for them is if they kind of hold back in the first or second quarter and just kind of see what's going to happen before they really jump in and go for it in the third quarter. We can't afford that. We have to jump into this game right away in the first quarter. So yes, we could use your money and your donation, which really helps us sustain and build a beautiful team that represents the diversity of this country. We are bringing in brilliant, wonderful people all across the country into headquarters in South Bend, but we could also really use your help just by having those conversations with your friends, sending an email out to your network, whether it's one person or 20 people. We're relying on you to help us spread this message.
And donations don't have to be $100, $200. They can be $5, $10. I mean, it's anything. Okay, time management. Somebody wants to know about your time management. How do you do it? You've got time for Pete, time to manage the household, time to yourselves, time for campaigns, time for, debates and appearances. So how do you do that?
You hire a really good team. My time does not belong to me anymore. But you hire a team that understands what's most important to you, what's most important to our marriage. Pete and I lay some ground rules very quickly that we anticipate being together this many nights a week. If we're traveling separately, we want to make sure we at least cross paths, once or twice a week. But you just hire a team that understands your values and understands what's important to you, so that way when we're building out a calendar or building out a schedule, the team doesn't have me doing nonstop fundraisers. I tell the team it's kind of important I spend like 80% of my time in the cities I go to with the community. So that's when we're afforded the opportunity to go to the homeless shelter, we're afforded the opportunity to go to the LGBTQ center and have lunch with teachers and just get to know people. So I trust that my team knows what's important to me, and then they build a really creative schedule around that. But I usually don't know what day it is. It is not uncommon to wake up in a hotel and not know where you are. But it's also just really worth it. It's a great opportunity. What is a weekend anywhere? I have no idea what that feels like anymore.
Okay, this person wants you to tell us a story about Pete that shows a side of him the media doesn't usually show.
Oh man. Wow. Let's see if we can fit two in. We'll do a funny one and a happy one. I think Pete has a great sense of humor. And has anyone read his book? Okay. That's great. All right. Very briefly, we took him to the UP on a family trip. We were going back to the campsite, and Pete wanted to help out and run into the general store that we stopped at to pick up breakfast supplies. We have a very large family. And we had just purchased a hybrid. So that was our first trip in our hybrid. And when we pulled into the gas station, my dad and I clearly feed off one another, and I was like, oh, and hey babe, when you run in there, can you grab some blinker fluid? And he was like, blinker fluid? And my dad was like, oh yeah, make sure it's the purple kind, E85 kind. You really gotta get or E50 kind, whatever, you gotta get that one. So, make a long story short, he wanted to impress the in-laws, and he wanted to impress me. He was like going up and down every single aisle. We were watching him. I was like, go up and down every single aisle. But finally, Mom went in there to break it to him. There was no such thing as blinker fluid, and also you need more than 1 dozen eggs to feed a family. Savvy story, Pete is an extremely loving man. So I think traditionally on television you see a very level-headed, very serious politician who is laser focused on doing the right thing and the most good for the most people. But when he is at home, he is so sweet and he is so patient with me. And I had a really terrible day at school and was probably a jackass all day via text or something, and Pete asked me to meet him in front of the theater downtown in South Bend, meet him by the fountain at a certain time, and we were just going to meet up to go to dinner. And I'm like, why are we meeting in front of the fountain? Can we just meet at dinner? Can we meet at the office? And I just was not getting it, and it was our anniversary of our first date together, and I had completely forgotten. And if you've read Pete's book, you know that I proposed to Pete with a watch. Pete had a little box and said, I just didn't think it was fair that I was the only one that had a watch. So he gave me a little gift, and then we went out to dinner, so there was a watch. And that's just the kind of guy he is. And I felt like garbage because I think, my day's hard at school, but here's this guy, holding a community together and being mayor, and he still remembered it was our anniversary and remembered to get a gift. And he's just a really, really sweet, romantic guy.
This is a pretty important question, I think, to a lot of people here. What Hogwarts house are you?
I wanted to be a Gryffindor when I grew up, but I'm really not.
This is getting back to helping with the campaign, but this is a more specific question. It says, as members of the baby boomers, which I am one, how can we help this campaign?
So when we talk about intergenerational alliance, we're talking about generations holding one another's hands and marching towards something brighter and better for everybody, not just a single generation. For once in our political spectrum, we don't see generations fighting one another. You would be surprised at the amount of gray hair at some of our events. I think people might assume that we are a very young campaign, but we are seeing people from every generation come to this campaign because they believe that it's time for a younger generation to take over, a generation that is going to be on the business end of climate change, that is going to have to answer to these tax cuts on millionaires, that we have so much at stake in this election, and other generations understand how important it is to leave a country and a world that is better off for their children and their grandchildren. Back to the conversations we were talking about having, it is okay to speak up and say, I really like that Pete guy, and I like that young guy, and here's why. So I think just one of the most unique things and important things you can do for this campaign is have authentic conversations with people, and not be afraid to say, I am supporting Pete Buttigieg, and here's why. I remember Pete telling a story that when he ran for mayor, he had enough money to run one poll. And they found out in this poll that the older the voter was, the more likely they were to vote for the younger candidate. So I wouldn't be doubtful of other people from your generation. I think we have tremendous opportunity to do good together in this election.
So we have about 15 minutes left, and Chasten at this point can take questions from the audience. And we've got some volunteers with microphones. We've got somebody with a hand up over there.
I've been out of the country for 4 out of the last 6 months, and so I came here 4 quarts low as far as information. I've spent the first half hour thinking you were running for president. Maybe you should.
I am not, sir.
Okay. So that was one bit of confusion that I started the night out with. The thing I'm looking for is, what does Pete really advocate as far as issues beyond gay pride, and gay rights? So far, I've gotten a heavy dose of that, which is great. But there's so many issues that face this country and the world, And I think we all know what they are. Pick your choice, whether it's global warming or our way of interacting with other countries around the world. But I would love to hear what Pete's views are regarding some of the other issues that face this country. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I absolutely respect that question. I hope you go to PeteForAmerica.com, go down to the policy page, and read about Pete's policies and his opinions. You can also go to meetpete.org, which is a great search tool where you can type in basically any keyword, and it'll spit out an interview or an article that Pete has given an interview, and a very cool search engine, so you can find a lot of answers. I'm going to be very careful not to speak for my husband tonight. I'm never here to speak for him and tell you exactly what he believes. But I also want to be careful not to diminish the importance of pride and the importance of visibility and representation, because I think, especially in this month, especially for this event, especially coming home, it's okay to be an openly gay man and sit on stage and talk about why that's important and how you survived. You're going to find a lot on those resources. You're going to find Pete speak about a myriad of issues pertaining to his campaign in this country. What I actually don't think you're going to find in a lot of those interviews is Pete talking about gay pride. I think you're going to find Pete talk about this marriage and how his marriage informs politics. I think you'll see him talk about his faith and how his faith informs his politics, informs his values. I don't think you will find an extensive platform on our website and on meetpete.org where you will see a candidate only talking about his sexual identity. Because in many ways, yes, this campaign is historic and beautiful because of the fact that we are married to one another, but it is also historic because it's not about the fact that we're married to one another.
Yes. Yes.
So I hope you go to that resource and you get to hear my husband talk about foreign policy and about the importance of women's issues, women's healthcare, the attack on women. You read about education. You read about infrastructure. There is a lot there waiting for you, and I don't think you will be overwhelmed with a candidate talking about his sexual identity.
Hi, my name is, Hi, my name is Marissa. I graduated from Traverse City West in 2016, and I just wanted to ask a question kind of about, you're a teacher yourself, and even in 2016, my freshman year of high school, which was 2012, frequently you would hear words like, oh, that's gay, or even kids being bullied outright for their identity. And sure, there weren't very many out people when I was 15 in high school, but even in the 4 years of high school, I remember my sophomore year, all of a sudden, we had clubs like the Gay Straight Alliance, which lots of teachers, including Mrs. Bach, helped create throughout the years, and issues where, like our 6th annual Pride Parade. And kids were starting to be more open and prideful, and even the cool, popular kids were defending them. What's the biggest change that you have seen as a teacher from when you're in school to now, that you walk the halls and see, the good or the bad?
Great question. Thank you. It is a little depressing to know, to my knowledge, I was taught by 3 or 4 who are now openly gay teachers. And when I went to West, in a student body of 1,500, 0 students were out, and I did not know of any out teachers. I think it was simply unsafe to be gay when I went to West. And it could have been politically destructive for a teacher at West to have been out when I went to West. I see a lot of similarities between where we have come so quickly in our country to what happened at Stonewall 50 years ago. 50 years ago, a couple of trans persons of color, stood up and said enough. We are tired of being bullied. We are tired of being pushed around. We are tired of being demonized. And we demand equality, we demand acceptance. It is okay to be gay, it is okay to be trans, it is okay to be black, it is okay to be brown. And we saw a generation and a movement stand up and say we are done being bullied. And then in the generation that I taught, I saw the same thing. I saw teachers come out and say, this is who I am and I'm tired of hiding it. I felt empowered by educators who told me it was okay to be myself, and that I would have rather lost my job than to continue hiding a simple fact about my identity. And I see a generation of kids who are fed up with a country and a politics telling them that they don't belong, and for some, they are demonized because they simply have to pee at school. I see a generation saying, we're done being bullied. And they are coming out. They are more fluid with their identities, with the idea of identity, and more accepting of their peers. And so is an administration, so is the body of teachers that I worked with. And I think it just comes down to the bravery of teachers and students who come together, especially at GSAs. Those are gay straight alliances. If anyone hasn't heard of those student groups, we didn't have GSA when I was at West, where schools say, this is a safe place. This is a safe place for you to be. It is okay to be yourself. We love you just the way you are, and we want to create a safe space for you to exist. And the more that teachers stand up and do that for their students, and the more that students stand up and demand that from their administration and their schools, I think we will see that arc of justice bend even further towards equality and acceptance in this country.
Hi, Chasten. My name's Jerry. I don't know if you remember me, but I was in Susan Odger's class on a panel when you were in class, and Chris and I talked about our coming out. And I was a teacher who was closeted for years and years in Sparta. And afterwards, you hung around and were out in the hallway when we were leaving, and you wanted to do some more talking besides what we had said at the panel. And I just want to congratulate you, and I feel very proud of what Susan Odgers has done and others, and Chris and I have been able to do to get people such as yourself to a position to where you are presently. Jim Crothers, one of his first acts as mayor was to marry Chris and I. That was, I think, 4 years ago, Jim? Something like that. So anyhow, congratulations.
Of course I remember you. And I hope you know that I never take a single day of this life for granted. That that was a very scary time in my life. And it's because of people like you, people like Susan, and countless other people who told me that it was okay to be myself, that I am alive today, that I'm here, and that I have this opportunity. I hope you know how instrumental you were in my survival. are people in this room who literally created space for a kid who was struggling to understand himself and his identity and his place in the world. And there are millions of us who owe a great deal of gratitude to folks like you and folks like you and folks like you who are the shoulders. You are the giants, the shoulders of giants that we stand upon. And without you, we would not be here. So thank you again.
Good evening, and thank you very much again for being to Traverse City. And just realize this whole room loves you that big. My question to you is, Thursday night is coming up. It's a primary debate night. Two-part question, will you be in the audience? And number two, can you share with us what kind of preparation Pete is going through for this very important inaugural debate?
I would not miss it for the world. I will be in the audience. From the little knowledge that I have of his preparation, it involves a lot of binders. I was in the hotel room the other day and there was a very thick binder. What is this? Like, oh, it's like debate prep, binder one. Binder one! So he's going through a lot of preparation, but he was born for this. He was born for this moment. He's so good under pressure. He has a heart of gold. He cares so deeply about other people in this country. And I cannot wait to see him excel on that stage. So I will be wherever I am in the theater. Thank you for an easier question.
I'll go. Hey, Chasten.
Oh, no.
Oh, what? I don't get to ask you a question? This is a serious question for you.
Okay, all right.
This is the first time we've met. Chasten, politics is a crazy game. What is something that you do on the campaign trail just for you to stay sane? I'm very interested in that question as your friend.
Oh my God, so many things. And I think it's kind of unhealthy because I'll always be like, well, self-care, you know. I'm like, well, I should eat sugar. It's self-care. You know, take care of yourself. But when I'm extremely stressed out, Pete and I do very different things. So Pete buys another book in the airport and pours himself into a book. He'll be sitting on the airplane and he'll be like reading Ulysses for the 20th time. I tried to read that the other way. I picked it up and like 10 pages. I'm like, no, never mind. I just don't have the mental capacity for it. I play games. I play Risk on my phone a lot. I have taken to doodling again. I just doodle, just draw on the plane because I can't look at a screen all day. I just have to like turn my brain off, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks now. And Michelle Obama's book on audiobook. My God. Yeah. Good to see you, Connor. Good to come home. Hi.
Hi, I'm Lynn Larson, and I have been an activist all my life. And I want to applaud all that you have done within the gay community. But I'm feeling very frustrated because I don't see those of us who are feminists. We have not come a very long way. Black lives matter greatly. We have brown people who are being discriminated against. Somehow the gay community has been able to achieve in a relatively short amount of time what none of the rest of us have been able to gain. And I'd like to know what lessons you have for us within our other groups that we can at some point achieve what you've achieved. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't think it's enough for us to accept marriage equality as full acceptance and equality in this country. I'm very glad that we achieved marriage equality, but that is just the beginning. That is a razor-thin margin of the beginning for the LGBTQ community. So I don't want to pretend like it's perfect for us. But I'm also not going to diminish the reality that it is harder for women and it's harder for people of harder for people of color in this country than it sometimes is being a white gay man. Because sometimes I get to hide behind that identity too, right? I am not afforded, I am afforded the opportunity to present myself as a straight white man, should I need to, when I feel unsafe. And I think It's not necessarily an opportunity for me to give you advice about what you can do, more of an opportunity to tell the other people in this room that it is on us too. That so often we feel siphoned into our communities, but let us not forget that people in the LGBTQ community can also care about women's issues, and women can also care about LGBTQ issues, and both of those communities can still care about issues for people of color, and that all of those communities can understand that Black lives do matter, right? And so we cannot accept equality, and we cannot applaud ourselves for how far we have come when other people are still being discriminated against and harmed in this country. And if we truly believe that we all do better when we all do better, then we will stand up for one another and show up for one another just the way that other communities showed up for us when we needed them to. So this is our last question.
It's a good one.
You're not gonna make me cry again, are you?
No.
Okay.
I like Pete, I like what he says, but I'm not convinced that he can beat Donald Trump. So convince me he can beat Donald Trump.
Have you heard my husband speak? I would say give people a chance, and let us not get lost in this conversation about electability and is America ready for a gay president, or can a mayor serve in the Oval Office. Because when you compare those two men, when one is in a monogamous, loving marriage and relationship, and the other is when one stands up for women and people of color and people in the LGBTQ community and fully understands his priority and his obligation to care for every person in this country, not just white men, and the other is when you have one who is, yes, highly educated and well-spoken, but most importantly, stable, and the other is there are a lot of people in this country who voted for 45 because they felt like politics left them out. That rather than vote for Hillary Clinton, they were going to go in that ballot box and they were going to burn the country down. Because for so long, this country had failed them. Now we are running a campaign about truth and transparency and acceptance and hope. And the other side is running a campaign that is designed to tear us apart. And like I told you earlier, hope is harder, but it is the right work. We have to believe in this country and believe in other people to make the right choice. But part of offering people a choice is to give them a choice to repent for that sin at the ballot box and do it in a way that allows them to vote for someone who truly puts this country before themselves, who served this country in uniform and didn't fake a disability to get out from it. Who has a track record of sticking up for people in marginalized communities, who has the ability to hold a community together, who has the ability to inspire a nation. I believe that is the winning message, and I think if you were able to travel with me to Iowa and to the other early states, you would find a dramatically different dialogue on the ground with caucus voters than what you see on national television right now. Believe in the people in this country, believe that people can make the right choice, and throw your support behind a candidate who believes in you too.
Before I ask you to thank Chasten for being here, I have just a little announcement. Oh, and actually, I wanted to say something to the gentleman back there who said he's been out of the country for the last 5 months. Yeah, in fact, you can absolutely go to the websites that he told you to. Listen to Peter talk. listen to his speeches, because everything that Chasten just said, you're going to hear that. And I think it's very interesting that when he's being interviewed by CBS, by NBC, by Fox, by CNN, any news outlet that interviews him, the question about being gay does not even come into the conversation till the end. It's all about policy. It's all about his views on things. So anyway, if you would like to have a photo opportunity with Chasten, we're going to do that out in the lobby. And what we're going to do is have you line up in the aisle on this side. You can still exit on this side. We're going to have volunteers that are going to keep the people who are lined up for the photo opportunity to the side, so you can still exit. But if you would like that photo opportunity, please line up over here. And otherwise, you can all make your way out on this side, because there's no line on that side. Or you can just leave. So let's give Chasten a round of applause. Thank you.